Please don't put your roll numbers in the chat section. So now we are going to see the next topic of the viruses, that is adenovirus, parvovirus, and the papovirus. So now we have started with the virology sections, and now we are going to see each and every viruses in this one. So these are adeno, parvo, papoviruses are mainly the DNA viruses group, and they are very small in them. Therefore, miscellaneously we are collectively going to learn these three viruses in this lecture. So first with the adenovirus. Adenovirus were first isolated in 1935 from the human adenoid tissue. Therefore, it is named as adenoviruses. Since then, at least 52 distinct antigenic types has been isolated from the human. And these all human serotypes are included in a single genus, that is the family Adenoviridae. So what is the adenoviruses? The family adenoviruses, which contains the groups of the viruses which having a medium size around 70 to 90 nanometer, non-enveloped viruses, and linear DNA stranded DNA viruses. Okay, so linear double stranded DNA viruses. This is the common properties of the any adenoviruses. Along with that, in morphology, what we can see in the right side, we can see here a typical morphology of an adenovirus. Okay, so here it has a capsid, non-envelope, but it is a capsule which has been containing a nucleic core, which has been containing a double stranded linear DNA virus nucleic acid. Okay, and these are the capsule which is present. We are having hexons and penton bases. So we'll going to see this in detail. In the next slide, we can see this capsid is containing 252 capsomers. Okay, 252 capsomers. Out of that, 240 are hexons, while 12 are the pentons. They have typical icosahedral symmetrical shape. Okay, with these are the fibers which are projecting from each of the vertex. So it typically looks like a space vehicle shaped virus. Okay, the space vehicle shaped virus is the morphology of this. Here, as you can see, the capsomers are there, then the hexons and the pentons. So these are the hexons which are 214 number, pentons are 13 number. They generally form the base of the each fiber. Okay, this is a typical morphology of adenovirus. Family adenoviruses are two genera: AV adenoviruses and Masculine viruses. AV adenoviruses in adenoviruses, AV, that is avium. That means they are causing infections of the birds. The Masculine viruses are infecting the mammals. There are 51 serotypes of the human origin have been noted of adenoviruses, and they have been grouped in six subgroups. They are 1 to 6, or they are also known group A to F. With how they are grouped, these 51 virus serotypes, so they grouped on the basis of ability to agglutinate RBCs from monkey or rat RBCs or the monkey RBCs has been used for their agglutination property. Then second, the oncogenic potential in animals. So there you have to be noted that adenovirus are also oncogenic viruses, one of the oncogenic viruses. And the property is the आलं मला ते मेसेज ड्यू टू इंटरनेट कनेक्शन. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, there is some internet connection problem due to which the session has been interrupted. But now again I will start the session. Just wait a minute. Okay, so we'll start from here. That is the family adenoviruses. Here the 51 serotypes of human origin, which are grouped under 6 subgroups based on the 3 characteristics. That is, first, agglutination property of them to agglutinate RBCs of the monkey or the rats, or oncogenic potentials of the animals. That is second one, and third one is the G plus C content of the DNA. That is the guanine plus cytosine content of the DNA. So this is the table showing the subgroups. This is 6 subgroups A to F, and along with that the serotypes in each subgroup. That is A subgroup containing 12, 18, 31 serotypes, number of serotypes. Then this is the 3, 7, 11, 14. As you know, 51 serotypes we have seen. Out of that, these are the predominantly serotypes follow in subgroup B. So, and these serotypes also will see the hemagglutination property. This is a partial hemagglutination, but this A subgroup having a oncogenic potential is high, very high. So that we have to note it. The A subgroup is highly oncogenic potentials. So likewise, B, C, D, E, and F. Each serotypes are there, and these are the properties of hemagglutination pattern of each subgroup. That is complete, partial, complete, partial, partial type, and the oncogenic potential. So this is the division of the serotypes in the subgroups of the adenoviruses. Now the disease association, the serotypes and their diseases. So serotypes also found, some of the serotypes have been continuously associated with particular disease, producing a particular disease. Can you hear me? Okay, okay, okay. So you can hear me. Okay. So the diseases that are produced by these serotypes are the serotypes number 1, 2, 5, and 6, causing respiratory diseases in mainly the children's. Then the serotype number 4, 7, 21, causing acute respiratory distress illnesses in particularly the military recruits. 3 and 7 serotype associated with follicular conjunctivitis, that is also known as swimming pool conjunctivitis. Then serotype number 8, 1937, is responsible for epidemic keratoconjunctivitis in the adults. And diarrhea causing diseases are particularly done by the due to the serotypes 40 and 41 in the children. So these are the serotype wise the diseases commonly associated with the serotypes. But it is seen that now we are going to see that in the pathogenesis, the adenoviruses are transmitted mainly by the respiratory route, by droplet infection, also by fecal-oral transmission. They also act as a fomite transmission. So that means, as you know, if there is a viruses will get attached to that local sites, and even if it touches the site, it will get infected from the same viruses. So they infect when this is the roots of infection, and they will multiply in the respiratory tract. They will multiply in the local respiratory mucosa, or maybe there is a due to touching to the eyes and all things, they may multiply in the conjunctiva, or maybe due to that fecal-oral transmission they multiply in the local intestinal tract, the small intestinal tract, followed by it will spread to multiply and spread to a preauricular, cervical, or mesenteric lymph nodes, where the epithelial cells are mainly get infected. So the adenoviruses are primarily infecting the children. As we adults also are affected, but most commonly the children are the susceptible ones to such infections. The one thing what we have seen here, the particular serotypes are causing particular disease. This is not the golden rule, because there may be a more than one serotype of the virus may produce the same clinical syndrome. As we have seen in the previous this year, the more than one serotype, they can produce the same disease, and also same serotype will produce only same disease. No, it is not will happen. That means a serotype may perform different types of diseases. As you can say, 7 serotype is also sore throat, also it is kind of follicular conjunctivitis also. And so that means the rule is the more than one serotype of virus may produce same clinical syndrome, and one serotype of the virus may cause different clinical syndrome as well. So that we have to know. Adenoviruses 1 to 7 are the most common serotypes worldwide. The incubation period of these serotypes, all these syndromes, respiratory symptoms particularly, it is varies from the 5 to 8 days. Now we are going to see each and every clinical syndrome which we are there is present. The acute respiratory disease is the adenovirus serotype 4 to 7 is the most commonly affecting. The syndrome is mostly affecting the military recruits living in a crowded conditions. They present as fever, rhinorrhea, cough and sore throat. Then pharyngoconjunctival fever. Pharyngoconjunctival, that means pharynx and conjunctiva both get affected. So therefore there is a fever, sore throat, coryza and conjunctival involvement causing red eye, that is the conjunctivitis. This is particularly seen in a outbreak pattern primarily in the children's attending the summer camps. Okay, so children's attending summer camp, the outbreak has been reported of red eye with fever, sore throat and coryza. This particularly due to adenoviruses. So there may be an association of these adenoviruses with the other respiratory and also other deep respiratory or upper respiratory infections and also the eye infections. Epidemic keratoconjunctivitis is a highly contagious condition and has an insidious onset of unilateral red eye. So first the patient present with the unilateral red eye, then it develops into the both eye will get involved due to the rubbing and itching. Therefore the contamination from that is the transfer from one virus from the one eye is go to the another eye, resulting into the involvement of the both eyes. So the patients mainly presents where it's a severe photophobia, then watering of the eye and the pain particularly. It is the most commonly seen. Along with that, fever and local lymphadenopathy also can be noted in such patients. So this epidemic keratoconjunctivitis is mainly caused by the serotype 8 and also may be associated with serotype 19 and 37. So this is a typical picture of the epidemic keratoconjunctivitis. Here we can see kerato means involvement of the cornea as well. So the cornea also get involved and the conjunctival tissue also. Typically, if you can see, firstly it's a red eye. Okay, so the red eye due to the highly redness of the conjunctiva we can see. So this is a typical red eye of this epidemic keratoconjunctivitis. Then other syndromes are the gastrointestinal involvement, that is the diarrhea will result. This is the serotype mainly 40 and 41 responsible such cases. This is also seen mainly in the children's infantile diarrhea in where they are daycare center. So the daycare center, summer camps where the sharing of this happening in the children's and they are susceptible ones. So therefore in such cases there will be a large number of patients we can see of the diarrhea. Okay, so the infantile diarrhea, particularly in the daycare centers, has been noted due to this adenoviruses, 40 serotype and 41 serotype. Other syndromes are the acute hemorrhagic cystitis, serotype caused by the serotype 11 and 21, generalized exanthems, then mesenteric adenitis and intersusception also can be reported in this adenovirus infections. So in the laboratory diagnosis, we are going to see you can see when you have seen the general properties and all these of the viruses, you have seen the lab diagnosis of viruses. So that is the main stem. So the methods which we are described in the general lab diagnosis of any viruses, this is applicable to each and every virus, depending the direct detection, then indirect detection, likewise. Okay. So the direct detection, we are going to see the virus particles by electron microscopy. This can be detected, which can be see a space-like vehicle. Typical space-like vehicle can be seen in the electron microscopic picture. Then demonstration of adenoviral antigens, that is also direct detection by ELISA. So that is the case. We can do this by the enteric adenoviruses. So the stool samples can be taken for the detection of their antigen by the ELISA method. And also we know that is the nucleic acid detection by polymerase chain reaction. So that is very helpful for the directly identification of adenoviruses in a tissue sample or a body fluid. Then isolation also possible. You also know the isolation, it's not a routine like bacterial one. We are using the cell lines. Okay, so the cell lines we are using. The swabs can be taken, but the virus is recovered from throat and conjunctival swabs. Also in the urine, isolation is difficult from the stool and rectal swabs. So stools are mainly subjected for the electron microscopic demonstration of the virus, and as well as the ELISA methods for detection of the antigen. So these respiratory samples are good for the isolation of these adenoviruses. So here we can inoculate them on a cell lines. You know the cell lines, what are the different types of cell lines. So here we are using human embryonic kidney cell line, and also we can primarily this human embryonic kidney cell line, because this is a adenoid tissue. It is more affecting the adenoid tissue of the kidney. So therefore the human embryonic kidney, HeLa and Hep2 cell line also can be used. So the effects of this has been checked as a cytopathic effect, which can be observed in this cell line when there will be infection with adenoviruses, which is cell rounding and aggregation into a grape-like cluster. So that is the particular cytopathic effect produced by the adenovirus in this particular human embryonic kidney cell line. Serologically, hemagglutination, as you know, hemagglutination is a property of these adenoviruses. Therefore, we can use the various RBCs to see the hemagglutination property. So here hemagglutination inhibition test is used for identification of adenovirus, and neutralization test also can be used to detect specific antibodies following the adenovirus infection. Prevention is more important in this case. As we all know nowadays, the prevention is very much important. So this is applicable to this adenovirus, that the careful hand washing, then disinfection of the environmental surfaces with sodium hypochlorite solutions, then risk of waterborne outbreak. So there will be a chlorination of the swimming pools at a particular time has to be done. So, and epidemic keratoconjunctivitis can be controlled by strict asepsis during eye examination conducted by the doctors. Okay, so these are the main points for the prevention of any adenovirus infections in the community. Then we have seen there is some live vaccines were developed for adenoviruses for serotype particularly 4 and 7, but were available only for preventing the acute respiratory distress syndrome among the military recruits. So this is not generally given to the community purpose. It's given only the military recruits who are going to recruited in the military. Before that we can give a live vaccine of serotype 4 and 7. Strict attention to good infection control practices is the effective tool for stopping the spread of these adenovirus associated diseases. So that we are to must taken care of. Now we are going to see the next virus is the parvovirus. Parvovirus, the characteristics of this virus is the smallest of the DNA virus, which is measuring of 18 to 26 nanometer in size, and they belong to the family Parvoviridae. They are also icosahedral, non-enveloped virus containing single-stranded DNA virus. Okay, the nucleic acid. The human parvo B19 is only known parvovirus that is pathogenic for the human. So the human parvovirus is a B19 virus. So if you see the history or historically, why it is named as B19? So in 1974, the Cossack et al. He first identified B19 virus while evaluating the test for hepatitis B virus surface antigen. So he was generally doing the hepatitis B virus surface antigen detection testing, but he accidentally found in his B panel the 19 number of the sample. So he has keeping the too many samples. In that 19 number of sample in the panel B has noticed some anomalous results that when we tested with counter immunoelectrophoresis on radio immunoassay. So that particular 19 number sample in the panel B has been showing some different results with these methods. So therefore, and then he developed found that it is something different from what we have seen. Then it is developed as parvovirus. So now it's known as also B19. So the parvovirus B19 is causing human infections, which is a causative agent of the erythema infectiosum. Okay, so that is the terminology you must know, erythema infectiosum. So that is the disease caused by the parvovirus B19. What is it? It's also called as a fifth disease. Okay, so it's also called as fifth disease. This is particularly causing a rash and fever in the children. So it is called fifth disease because it's in the fifth list, in the list of the diseases which has been classified as the sixth classified exanthematous disease of the childhood. In that, the parvovirus B19 stands fifth in that six classified diseases. So therefore, this infection is also known as the fifth disease, that is erythema infectiosum. The B19 also has a tropism for the two types of cells. That is, first is the RBC precursors and endothelial cells in the blood vessels. So that is another property of this particularly parvovirus B19. So what happens? Because it has infects rapidly to the RBC precursors which are present in the bone marrow cells, erythroid cells in the fetal liver, erythroid leukemia cells. So ultimately they develop there and they destroy these cells after infection and resulting into the what is the clinical entity that is known as a aplastic anemia due to damage of the RBC precursor cells. So that is the aplastic anemia caused due to the parvovirus B19. The infection to the endothelial cells in the blood vessels which results into the erythema infectiosum. Okay. So erythema infectiosum. Now this is the flow chart of the pathogenesis of the parvovirus B19. It is again particularly a respiratory tract of infection primarily because it transmitted by respiratory route. So the upper respiratory tract it resides there. Then there is a local replication at the site of pharynx, and also it reaches as it has precursor site replicates in the erythroid precursor cells in the bone marrow. So resulting into the viremia, generalized viremia. So that is present as the clinical features as a arthralgia and rash, which is a typical feature of erythema infectiosum, that is a fifth disease. And some of them may present as a normal, but still they have slightly drop in the hemoglobin level because of they are affecting the precursor RBCs. So therefore the hemoglobin level will be dropped. So a chronic condition will result in the chronic hemolytic anemia. The clinical syndromes already we taught, that is a flu-like illness as we know, then erythema infection is already taught, but the clinical features of this erythema infectiosum is like this. That is a bright red rash is developed along the both cheeks. Okay, so the bright red rash develops on the both cheeks and that appear as the slapped cheek appearance. Okay, so the slapped cheek appearance is the typical rash which is produced in a this parvovirus B19 infection. The rash may appear on the trunk which spreads gradually towards arms and legs. And this condition, so this is also maybe a typically of the fifth disease, that is showing a slapped cheek appearances. Okay, so this is typically rash of the parvovirus B19, that is erythema infectiosum. Then the aplastic anemia. This is the transient but severe aplastic anemia can occur in the children with chronic anemia because these are the RBC precursors get affected. So there is a chronic decrease in the hemoglobin level resulting to the anemia. So there is aplastic anemia will develop in the children which are already having sickle cell anemia, thalassemia and spherocytosis after infection with B19 infection. And again, the next entity is the Glos and Stock syndrome. That is the erythematous exanthema, which is appearance of redness typically of the hands and the feet. And there is a well-defined margin on the wrist or the ankle joints. Okay, you can see here the well-defined margin at the wrist. So that is looks like a typical children wearing a glove. So therefore, it's known as a Glos and Stock syndrome. In pregnant women, the infections may result associated with a high risk of fetal death. Okay, Then, if the patient fetus survives, subsequently develops the high output cardiac failure, that is the hydrops fetalis is the terminology. If the patient is, if the fetus is affected with the B19 in the pregnancy. So B19 virus does not cause any congenital anomalies to the fetus, but only it may cause high risk of fetal death, and if it survives, there is a hydrops fetalis like condition we'll see in the fetus. So this is the summarization of this B19 infection: flu-like illness, erythema infectiosum typically fifth disease, infections in pregnant women, and chronic B19 infection into anemia and leukemia. In lab diagnosis, here the demonstration of IgG and IgM antibodies in the serum is the main useful for the diagnosis of erythema infectiosum caused by B19. Apart from doing this direct examination, that electron microscopy and cell lines and all that, but this antibody detection will be helpful in the diagnosis of such infection. ELISA, radioimmunoassay, these are the also used for demonstration of the IgG IgM antibodies. And also we know polymerase chain reaction is also gold standard for demonstration of such B19 virus genome in the blood. Now the last virus is the Papua viruses. The Papua virus term because of it contains PA, that is the papilloma virus of human being and rabbits, PO, that is polyoma virus of the mice, and VA, that is vacuolating virus of the monkey. So previously it has been termed as the Papua viruses, but now this Papua variety is developed only in two families. Now we have only two families of it. That is, the first is the family Polyoma viridae, which is contain JC virus, BK virus, and SV40, that is simian vacuolating virus 40. So these viruses are present in the family Polyoma viridae, while the second family is the family Papilloma viridae, that is the human and animal papilloma viruses. So now this Papua viruses that containing three virus has now only the two families of this Polyoma viridae and Papilloma viridae. These are also again morphologically, if you can see, there are small non-enveloped icosahedral capsids and double-stranded circular DNA viruses. Okay, so that is almost similar to that previous two viruses. There again it may be oncogenic property. They may produce a benign tumors. So papilloma viruses are the species specific, and they are infecting mainly the squamous epithelial cells and the mucous membranes of the different parts, resulting into the particularly the wart conditions. Okay, the human papilloma viruses infect only human, and over 70 types has been recognized in this one. They are producing the warts. Warts mean a type of replication at the squamous epithelial cell resulting into a wart. So that is the common warts is the first. They are presently seen in the hands and the feet of the children, and they are caused by type 2, 4, 27 and 57 particularly. Genital warts are the known as condyloma acuminata, that is the genital wart. They are soft pedunculated warts on external genitalia. So they are maybe a venereal transmission has been also be seen. Genital warts particularly caused by human papilloma virus 6 and 11, which is the having a benign property of the oncogenic property, benign oncogenic property. So they are producing intraepithelial neoplasia, so benign nature of malignancy. So but HPV, human papilloma virus 16 and 18, they are highly malignant cells, while highly malignant viruses causing uterine cancers, uterine cervical cancer, particularly the cervical cancer. So this is a highly malignant serotypes 16 and 18, while this is the less malignant, causing benign lesions like intraepithelial neoplasia. But the HPV causing malignancies is not, the infection is called malignancies. No, there are some cofactors are important to induce them to produce this benign malignant property of these viruses. Now there are HPV vaccines also available. These are recently developed. There is HPV vaccination will show a reduction in the rate of all the HPV infections, and also there is a reduction in the rate of cervical cancers in the females. So this is a subunit vaccine which consists of a virus like particles. These may be a bivalent, quadrivalent, or nine-valent. These type of vaccines are available. Bivalent is the having the high risk serotypes. So these are the prepared from the high risk serotype, that is 16 and 18, producing the cervical carcinoma. So this is high risk serotype only containing. So this is bivalent. Quadrivalent containing serotypes 6, 11, 16, and 18. And also recently launched this is 9-valent, that is a 7 carcinoma producing serotypes like 16, 18, 31, 33, 45, 52, 58, and 2 non-carcinoma producing serotypes like 6 and 11. So this is a, when this 9-valent is having subunit vaccine 9-valent, this is having all the serotypes in that same vaccine. So these all vaccines are given by intramuscular route, but the doses are varied. Some of them in a single dose, or some are given 3 doses, depending upon the which valent vaccine we are using. And the most susceptible age given is the females of age 9 to 24 years of age group. So these are the community people, the 9 to 24 years of the females, which are mostly are vaccinated with the HPV vaccine to prevent the future carcinoma, cervical carcinoma, due to this human papilloma viruses. The JC virus, now we are taking the polyoma virus. The second family is the polyoma viridae. In that, the JC virus is the isolated from the brain of the patients of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it grows only in the human fetal glial cell cultures, oncogenic, which produces malignant glioma. The BK virus is isolated from the urine of the patients with the kidney transplant. Okay, only that one. So antibodies to JC and BK viruses are present widely in human sera, and the viruses occur commonly primary infection in the childhood, and brain and the renal tract are the two sites where the virus multiply fastly in the demonstrated in that particular regions. And they may asymptomatic, mainly they are asymptomatic, but may remain latent. That means if your immune system is impaired in the future life, maybe the virus is reactivated. So that is the case. There is no particular infection has been noted. So lab diagnosis of these infections are molecular methods. Again, PCR detects the human papillomavirus DNA, which is gold standard. Again, the most lesions, that is the warty lesions, which can be easily visible by the naked eye. But if you have to see more visibility of such warty, you can apply a solution of 5% acetic acid to the region, and you can see these warty lesions will easily visible due to this application of this solution. Then cytological evidence is very much important. For the cytological evidence, we are going to do the pap smear. Pap smear is performed from the cervical or anal scrapings. So that we have seen for screening. So therefore, in the middle-aged females, we advise them to do the pap smear at the frequent intervals of time, because to catch the HPV infection and the cervical cancer infections due to this human papillomavirus earlier. So therefore, pap smear is also good screening tool for HPV infections in the females. Then the histopathological staining of the biopsy, the warty lesions which we are taken, is biopsied and sent into the histopathological lab. So there we can see the particularly lesions can be seen. Antibody detection is there, but it is not very useful in human papillomaviruses. Treatment point of view, whatever warty lesions are there, the simple is the surgical excision of such surgical warts is the method of choice for the treatment. So this is done by the cryo method, laser method, and all method. Okay, so the just surgical excision of the local warts is the useful for the treatment of the human papillomaviruses. Okay, so thank you. So this is all about this today's lecture of human papillomaviruses, adenoviruses, and all one. So we finish with this one, and I already given you the